Hi, welcome to Yoga Tomorrow. I'm Tracy. Today's workshop is triangle and pyramid. They're similar but different movements, and I do use them in sequence. We have a free beginners class released this week that they are used in sequence. And because it's in sequence, moving with the timing of your breath, it moves quite fast and it can be quite difficult for me to even explain everything I need to in that time for you to make those decisions, to make those movements in that short amount of time. So for a beginner, it can be quite challenging. So here's a nice little workshop just to give you a bit more of an in-depth perspective into how those movements work. So we have one variation of triangle that is not in the beginners class this week, but I use it in other classes, and you'll notice it's different to the other one. So here we have our feet parallel to the short edges of the mat. So I tend to do a forward fold or a revolved movement here. We also have a lateral. For me, I find less tension on the knees. It's quite a relaxed positioning and very opening for the back side of the body in this positioning. So what we need to do is make sure we have a gentle bend in those knees, making sure the knees are nice and soft. We find our neutral pelvis by tucking and tilting. Shoulder blades are drawn together and down the back. Chin is drawn towards the chest. Back of the head is pressing back slightly. Now we've established our neutral spine so that we're open and ready for our movements. So here, when we come into our lateral, we can draw our arms up on our inhale, and then as we exhale, we're sliding down to one side. And we only have to slide down as far as what we need to. We can track the abdominals to stabilize the pelvis through that movement there. We can have a hand on a hip or hand towards the ceiling. As we inhale, we then press through the feet and we activate through the torso to lift back upright. And we exhale to release. Moving into revolved. So if we had a bolster or something in front of us, if you're a beginner, it means you don't need to come so far down towards the mat. So if we inhale to draw up, we're really lengthening up through the spine. We're drawing our shoulders away from our ears so we're not hunching into our neck. Shoulder blades are together and down the back. And as we exhale, we're revolving down to one side. We're reaching that arm down, we're bending our knees to allow openness in the back side of the body there, the back side of the legs. We keep the chin drawn towards the chest. We can have a hand on a hip here or that hand towards the ceiling. We're using a twisting movement here, so we draw in our abdominals to activate that twist using the deep spinal muscles here. And then as we inhale, we're pressing through the feet, activating through the back to lift all the way back up and release the arms down. So that is this positioning of triangle. We also have a variation where we turn the toes out. So this can cause a little bit more tension in the knees, but in the way I slot this in with some warrior sequencing as well at times, it means that you're kind of already flowing through that type of movement. So it is very similar in that we inhale to draw up. We may already have got to this position here from having been in warrior, and then we straighten through those knees. We draw the arms up. Our hips are facing the long edge of the mat. So as we come down, we draw in those abdominals so we can strengthen through the pelvis, keeping our hips aligned to that long edge of the mat. Our arms are up. As we come out of warrior, we straighten through that front leg, but we don't lock the knee out. We want a nice soft bend in that knee still. And then as we exhale, we're sliding that arm down, that leg, the left arm up towards the ceiling. You can also place that on the hip there if you don't want that reach. So here we're stretching through this side of the body. We're contracting through this to hold you here. But then as we inhale and lift back up, we're pressing through this leg and we're activating this side of the torso at the same time as trying to contract those abdominals, keeping that contraction there, inhaling back up. To then move into revolved from here. Revolved is challenging. So We can draw that foot in slightly, and then we exhale to twist in through our spine. Our hips tend to face the short edge of the mat more, but just flow with this one. We're keeping that leg mostly straight, but again, if you need to bend that knee further to allow you to achieve this movement, that is fine. So we're revolving, we're twisting in through our torso. You can bring this hand to the hip, and we're extending this hand towards that foot. So in a beginner stage, that's all we need to do. We don't need to come any further than this. Coming down, as we do, further into more advanced positioning, like this, I find that positioning challenging. I have to bend in that front leg a little bit to achieve that. So don't feel like you have to do that. Depending on the sequencing you're doing, you can have a support there to allow you to feel more supported here. Otherwise, you just reach down to wherever is comfortable, contracting in those abdominals, really using those deep spinal muscles here. And then we inhale, pressing through that right leg to come back up. And then in our sequence, in our beginner sequence this week, we are moving into pyramid. So we're fully drawing our hips to face that short edge of the mat. We can shuffle that foot a little bit wider, but probably we've already done that in order to achieve that revolved movement. So our hips are facing forward, our knee is staying straightened here, not fully straight. We're inhaling to draw the arms up, making sure our spine is nice and long. And then as we exhale, we are really extending forward with that spine. You can have the hands on the hips, and again, you're still visualizing the spinal extension here, making it nice and long, tipping at the hip. Those arms help you gain that feeling of extension, but it does make it more challenging. You then come down to wherever is comfortable, so you can rest your chest on your thigh. So that's why you can bend the knee as much as you need to find that comfortable positioning here. Some do teach to have blocks on either side of that leg, but when you're moving through a sequence, that's quite hard to do. So we just rest that chest on the thigh, as much of a bend in the knee as you need to. To come back up, you're pressing through those feet. Now, actually, before we come back up, just remember that lower abdominal contraction in here. When you draw that in, that allows you to fold that bit deeper, really bringing that chest down. It allows a little bit more space in here in your abdominal cavity. So then we're inhaling, we're pressing through that front leg, we're activating through the back to lift the torso back up. And exhale, releasing all the way down. So that is triangle variation with more of a forward fold and a twisting movement. We have triangle with a lateral with our feet turned out. And we have pyramid, which is definitely hips facing that short edge of the mat. So some very similar movements there. So just remembering when we move through the sequence, we're going from one side to the other, and we're not doing that forward variation here. We're just moving through from side to side, and then we have a stay in each side to complete those movements. So just remember those pressure points, those cues that you need to remember about drawing the abdominals to stabilize, where the hips should be facing, where you're pressing your feet in order to come out of the posture as well, so that you're not straining as you come out. Don't go too deep. Any questions at all, feel free to send me a message through my website or on Facebook. I'm here to help. And I know that one can be quite challenging. Even I find it challenging. So feel free to ask questions.